Hey folks, it's Paul Watson here, back with another Prison Planet live report here on YouTube with the new channel. Thanks for all your support so far. We got number 6 on the list of most subscribed channels for this week, so we're certainly starting to make some waves pretty quickly. What I want to discuss today is just a little aside that I've been ruminating over in recent weeks. I've been reading this book which was put out by the two Guardian journalists regarding Julian Assange and Wikileaks, Inside Julian Assange's War on Secrecy, by David Ley and Luke Harding, who are the two Guardian journalists that worked with Assange to release all the cables. People on both sides of the equation have been quick to rush to judgments about Julian Assange and his motives. On the one side, you've got a whole army of people who just instantly see any criticism of him as an example of a smear launched by his enemies, and there are people who are so eager to fall at his feet and worship him that they can't even see beyond that point into questioning his motives. Whereas on the flip side, there are other people who've immediately again rushed to judgment and denounced Assange as this secret agent insider that's putting out false information. Because, and you can't get away from the fact, a lot of the material that Wikileaks has released is merely an echo chamber of the US military-industrial complex, specifically with regard to Iran. And there are claims from people within Wikileaks that Assange's motive, far from being just this moral crusade for truth, is about his own ego gratification. And this book by the Guardian journalists certainly goes a long way to point to the fact that Assange is this kind of dictator character. That's how he was labelled by some of his former WikiLeaks colleagues. Certainly the so-called rape allegations are again up for debate. The authors claim in this book that Assange is basically a sexual predator, that he's very aggressive around women, although that's not to say that their claims are completely true, as many people have put forward. But what's also interesting about Assange and Wikileaks is the fact that before the release of this dump of Iraq war cables and other cables which occurred in towards the end of last year, November, December 2010, which is what led to the court case and all this aftermath and the threats that he would be killed by the US State Department, other officials that hinted that he may be a target as a cyber terrorist for releasing these classified cables. What I found interesting, I've been reading this book today, is this section. This is just before they released the cables at the end of last year, just before the cables came out. Now, he said, this is Assange, the ordering had to be arranged so that it didn't appear anti-American. He didn't want Wikileaks to seem obsessed with America. The stories in the cables had far wider significance, so it was important to establish a running order which would make people realise that this wasn't simply about the US. So that may go some way to answering why a lot of these cables are about Iran and North Korea and America's so-called enemies. Assange was trying to take a strategic path whereby people in America wouldn't think that this was just a left-wing anti-American crusade. But what's also interesting is, this is a direct quote from Assange, there are security exposés and abuses by other countries, these bad Arab countries or Russia, he said. That will set the initial flavour of this material. We shouldn't go exposing, for example, Israel during the initial phase, the initial couple of weeks. Let the overall framework be set first. The exposure of these other bad countries will set the tone of American public opinion. In the initial couple of weeks, the frame is set that will colour the rest of it. So this is Assange agreeing with The Guardian and the New York Times to not release negative information about Israel and the United States in the initial phase of this cable dump. Now, of course, months beforehand, WikiLeaks released the Apache helicopter footage, which was certainly negative as far as the agenda in Afghanistan goes. So people fall on two separate sides of the equation on this. Is Julian Assange just this egotist wannabe rock star from Mars who's taken the Wikileaks project, which was initially laudable, and is basically using it for his own ends, for his own ego, and maybe in the course he's being compromised? Or is he, completely white as snow, this pure moral crusader? Is Wikileaks in general a positive thing? Has it got the best interests at heart of the people who support it? And the people who support it are obviously these hacker groups. I mean, they've come to be the main proponent now of WikiLeaks and what is advancing WikiLeaks in recent weeks and months by hacking these different organisations. Obviously, Visa and MasterCard being prime amongst them. What's interesting though is that these hackers, this anonymous group, sprang up from the 4chan website, which of course has now gone in two separate diversions. It's forked into Lulzsec and Anonymous, two different hacking groups who disagree with each other and therefore target different organisations to be hacked. What's interesting though is that same group, 4chan, several years ago attempted to hack InfoWars and in fact several of our websites, of Alex Jones's websites. So you have to ask yourself, why are these hackers who have supposedly glommed onto Assange as moral crusaders hacking some of the biggest alternative media websites on the planet that would, you think, be exposing the same people that WikiLeaks and Assange want to expose? Related to that is the fact that we've tried literally a dozen occasions to get Assange on the Alex Jones show for an interview. And you'd think he'd be at least interested in giving a 20-minute interview with one of the biggest, if not the biggest, alternative media platforms on the planet. But we've found that WikiLeaks, aside from its former members like John Young, and Assange in particular, does not want anything to do with InfoWars, which is why we've started this discussion, because obviously WikiLeaks has become prominent at the forefront of the movement against the US military-industrial complex. So I want to see viewers explore the question in the comments below. Julian Assange, moral crusader, compromised egotist, or something in between? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and we'll be back with more videos at Prison Planet Live in the coming days and weeks. Stay tuned.